Awesome. Thank you. All right. So hello, everyone. Welcome to our virtual open house, second year in a row. My name is Alicia Mayer. I'm the team leader of the Ruby team for 7th grade, and we are so excited that you guys are here to join us today. So I know there has been some issues with our Google Meet link. We thought using our Ruby Team Google Classroom link would be the most efficient, but turns out that if you're outside our organization, like with your own email address, it doesn't seem to let you in. So apologies on our end. As always, technology is always changing. Just for a couple things as we get started today. If you're new to Google Meet, there's a couple of buttons just to be aware of. Please keep your mic muted so we reduce the background noise until it's time for questions at the end. We recommend using what we call the spotlight view since we will be presenting and speaking. You can find that here at the 3 dots, and you can select change layout in the sidebar, and spotlight is the best. And then if you need to pop something in the chat, it is right here on this icon in the bottom right-hand corner of your Google Meet screen, the little message box.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Gina Pudlow. I'm Spanish teacher on team. And tonight's format will run for about an hour. The open house will run for about an hour. As Alicia just said, just please make sure your mic is muted so we don't get the echo. You'll be able to hear us a little bit better. Each teacher on the Ruby team is going to take turns explaining some logistics about KP, as well as we will all be going through our own curriculum. And we will definitely leave time for questions at the end. We also ask, I'm sorry, I'm also admitting people to the meet as I'm talking, so excuse me for a second. Okay, I'm sorry about that. There will also be a Google form that we'd love for everyone to fill out after the session ends, and that will be posted in the chat, Alicia, at the end?
I'm going to send it as an email.
Okay, so you will get that as an email, and we'd love for you to fill out that Google form for us. And Alicia, just so you know, I'm not sure if you can see it on your end, but people are still joining now. I'm admitting them.
Awesome. Thanks, Ms. Pudlow.
I'm also admitting a lot of people through email as well.
All right, so here we are. The Ruby team teachers. Just going across the top, we have Mr. Fisher, Eric Fisher, who is our math teacher. Alicia Mayer is our team leader and social studies teacher. Megan Cassidy, who I believe maybe, oh, she's here now. Hi, Megan. Megan Cassidy is our art teacher. Allison Lassard teaches science. Charlotte Whitman-Logan is our music and orchestra teacher. I'm Gina Pudlow, I'm the Spanish teacher on team. Katie Capalla is our special education teacher, and Amy Stevenson is our ELA teacher.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. My name's Eric Fisher. I'm the math teacher on the Ruby team this year, and each of us have a few things to present to you. So I'm going to be responsible for presenting this slide to you. So one thing we wanted to talk to all of you about, and I'm sure you're somewhat aware, is the expectations we have on team every day for our students. So if you take a look, there's a lot written here. I think some of the highlights of some of the more important ways that each of your children can prepare each day, especially this year, is number one, to make sure if they're using their own device, if they're bringing that to school, that's charged when they come to school. Even if they bring their charger with them and it's not fully charged, like we can help them kind of charge it for a little while. Make sure they also bring their binder, something to write with. I know Mrs. Stevenson in Language Arts recommends highly that they all carry an independent reading book with them every day. Headphones and AirPods or earbuds are always helpful, especially during some classes where we're using Chromebooks. We do ask the kids to use a reusable water bottle that's filled with just water, not other liquids, just water. One thing about the water bottles, we're trying to encourage students to have a drink of water when they need to, but not to constantly drink water, because when they do that, their mask is constantly off. So we're trying to limit that in classes every day. Lastly, make sure they're coming to school with whatever homework they were assigned or independent practice assignments they were assigned that day. In terms of masks, overall, I think the students have done a great job at wearing their masks all the time, appropriately above the nose. We have a few students that kind of sneaks down a lot, so we keep encouraging them to make sure those masks are worn all the time. We do take breaks, and if your son or daughter needs an additional break, please just let us know that, and we can somehow figure out a way to give them an extra break. In addition, try to encourage them to be on time for all of their classes. They're moving around 9 or 10 different times during the day, and it's challenging for them. They do have 4 minutes, and usually our classes are right next to each other, so it really takes about 20 seconds to get from class to class. Most kids aren't using their lockers often, so they're pretty much coming from class to class. So please encourage them to kind of move from class to class. And when they're in the halls, we're really trying to encourage kids to stay in their own space. Personally, we're trying to just stay safe in school. So that's one way that you could help out as well.
Good evening. I'm Allison Lassard, the science teacher on team. So in terms of devices, students are welcome to bring their own to school. If they don't have one, all students have been assigned a team Chromebook. So we have 4 carts on team, and each student just uses the same Chromebook daily. Every day there is an opportunity for them to use their Chromebook, so it's important that they have one. We are definitely reinforcing that Chromebooks are for academic use only. We saw, unfortunately, one of the side effects of using it so much last year is that some kids got into the habit of opening up other tabs for gaming or YouTube. But this year we really started off very strong and consistent with the kids in terms of it's only for academic use. And the vast majority of the kids really have been respectful in terms of that. And I know the parents that we've had to reach out to for some extra support have been supportive, certainly in talking to their kids. So that really is our big push, that it's just for academics in school. If anybody does not have a device for their child to use at home for homework, just reach out to Alicia Mayer via email, and the school does have devices that students can use at home. So advisory, if kids were at KP last year, they had advisory. And this is a time every day that we meet in small groups. Hopefully at this point you have heard from your child's advisor, just reaching out to see how the beginning of school has been going. But really our advisory groups are just an opportunity to meet with small groups of kids, to really build a connection, to give kids a place where they feel comfortable in a smaller setting. And throughout the week, we have different themes to help us engage in discussions and some fun. So we have Mindful Mondays, where we really check in, ask students to be mindful about their academics. We look into Power School, kind of look ahead at what is going on team. Talk to Me Tuesdays, usually a highlight for kids where we pick different topics and kids can share out and really share their opinions. On Wednesday and Thursday, we really emphasize our social emotional learning curriculum and our social justice curriculum, where we really are focusing in on topics that are happening every day. Since last year, certainly if kids were at KP, they heard a lot about social emotional learning, how to recognize their emotions, learning tools on how to self-regulate. And we're certainly continuing that because that is an important theme, certainly for all of us, especially after the roller coaster that we've been through the last couple of years. So that's our emphasis on Wednesdays and Thursdays. And then on Friday, it's a fun Friday where advisors kind of decide what they want to do as a group, whatever is most enjoyable for them. So I'm sure most advisors will say, if not all, that this really is a time where we get to connect. We probably know our advisory students best at this point in the year because we've gotten to spend so much time just engaging in conversations.
Hi, everyone. I'm Amy Stevenson, and I teach language arts on Ruby Team. And I'm going to talk a little bit about some homeschool connections and the way that you at home can, well, find out some information on your own, if need be, regarding how your student is doing at school, and also kind of provide them with a little bit of support on how to navigate some tools that will help them be successful. So, to help you stay in the know, one thing that you can definitely do is to check PowerSchool, check Google Classroom, check the homework calendar. All of those things should kind of consistently help your student to know what their job is, what they're responsible for. You can always contact us either by email or by phone if you have questions as you've looked into any of that. It's always a really good first check to maybe try looking in Google Classroom or PowerSchool if a question comes up. And then if that isn't providing you with the resource that you need, certainly reach out to us and we will be happy to help. You should also be looking out for a Ruby Team newsletter that will be sent out by Mrs. Mayer through email. One of them will be coming out tomorrow. And then it's every other week after that on Fridays. So if you are helping your student or kind of just on your own, checking out PowerSchool to sort of see how things are going, this is what you would see if you opened up your child's PowerSchool account. It would just kind of be all of their classes and their schedule and the grades that they currently have. And a lot of what you see in front of you is clickable. All of those grades, you can click into that link and it'll show you the list of graded assignments that are happening in that quarter so far. So if you need to dig a little bit deeper, you can click into that and that will bring you to this screen where you'll sort of see just the itemized assignments in order by date. And there's a whole lot of symbols on here. So if you kind of just take a minute to take them in, you can figure out a lot. These will tell you a lot. So if you see this orange exclamation point in the orange circle, that tells you that something is missing. If you see the round red clock, that means something was submitted late. And you can see that it gives you the date that the assignment was assigned or due, the category, what the assignment title is, which should also match up to what you're able to see in Google Classroom. And then if you want to know a little bit more about the assignment, if you're like, what's missing? Okay, summer reading is missing. You can click that view button and you can read a message that sort of explains what that assignment is. So if it's summer reading, it says, oh, okay, they were using a book that they read this summer and they gave either a book talk or they created this graffiti brick. So you can get a whole description of that assignment, which a lot of times I remember with my own kids just being like, well, did you look at the assignment? Did you check and see what it says? And sometimes a lot of their own questions can be answered right in there. So that is there for you as a resource and for your student as a resource. And if you've done those things and you still kind of need our help, reach out and we will help fill in any blanks for you.
So I was going to talk about Google Classroom for a little bit, but just to go back to PowerSchool, if you are having trouble logging into PowerSchool as a parent, please feel free to reach out to Myra Lozada in the front office, and she can get you set up with a PowerSchool account. We will also share this presentation with you through the email right at the end of this, so her contact information will also be included in there. So Google Classroom is another way that we can check in on how our students are doing and how you can check in on your child and how they're doing as well at home. The Google Classroom to-do list, again, we're relying on Google Classroom to post our assignments digitally. And so the to-do list is a great feature. We recommend actually sitting down with your child and having them log on to their Google Classroom because their view is going to be a little different than what a parent or guardian sees if you're in the Google Classroom as that capacity. So we do recommend sitting down with your child if you're curious and having them log into their Google Classrooms. They can access the to-do list by the 3 lines in the upper left-hand corner, and then they can click down into the to-do button. And when they do that, the next screen they will see is right to the right here of that other image. And this is a really great screen because it can break things down in a lot of different ways. So the very first screen you'll see is they'll see all the assignments that are due during the week. So things that are posted for homework or things that were done in class, you'll see in this screen under this week. They even have the capability to see if something was posted and it's actually due the following week, or either later in the future if a teacher has posted something that far out. They can also filter it using the drop-down box where it says all classes. So if you're just curious about a specific class like Spanish, it can be filtered out that way. And you also have this other little tab that says missing. So that's also a really great tab to look at as well, in case students have missed school, or if you're curious about a PowerSchool grade and you see that an assignment is missing in PowerSchool, you could probably locate it here in Google Classroom as well to see what the assignment looks like. Oops.
Okay, and yet another way to check in on your child's work, or if they would like to check in on what the homework is, we do have a Ruby homework calendar, and it is posted in a number of different places. So you can find this a couple of ways. It is posted in our Ruby Google Classroom. Students were also shown a QR code so they could scan that with their phone, and that should show right up for them that way. And it was also sent out in the most recent newsletter, which I think, was that sent out last Friday or possibly the Friday before?
Yeah, it was sent out ago.
So there was a link in that most recent newsletter where you can just click on that link and it'll bring you right to our Ruby homework calendar. And when you get to that, you'll see all of the classes and what the homework is for the night. So it's broken down by class, very easy to read and user-friendly. So if your child is unsure of what the homework is, they can just click onto the Ruby Google Classroom. We do encourage them to bookmark that so they can easily find it. And then they will have the list of assignments for each class there.
Okay, so seeking extra help. So each of the students on the Ruby team, there are basically three, it's actually four, but we'll talk about the three major ones here. So there's really three ways that your child can seek extra help on team. Number one is through the Learning Lab period, which is period 8 every day. It's really ideal for those students who have Learning Lab every day, or students who maybe just have choir, or maybe just have band, or maybe just have orchestra. And they'll be with us at least 2 or 3 days a week. So that's a great resource for students during Learning Lab to seek out their teacher. It might be the Learning Lab teacher they have, or it might be one of their other teachers. So that's a great way to connect with teachers, ask questions, clarify things that they didn't understand from class. Another option for some students, especially those who have like both band and choir or don't have any Learning Labs at all, is to schedule an appointment or meet with their teacher either before or after school. That's by appointment. So you can either, your child can either talk to the teacher or maybe email them. And they could probably get some extra help that way, depending on what works for your schedule as a family and what works for the teacher as well. A third option is Saturday Academy, which will start to run in mid-October. And that's a 3-hour program that's held at school. And it's really ideal for students who maybe need to get caught up, and maybe they need like a supportive environment that's quiet. Maybe home that week was difficult or something in terms of busy, and maybe they just had a hard time kind of focusing. So it's an ideal place for some kids to get caught up. Sometimes we recommend kids go to Saturday Academy to get caught up, and other times it can just be an option for them. A fourth option that I know that I often recommend to students is they're having trouble with work on a given day. They can definitely email me or email their teachers, and there's a chance that your teacher could respond to you if they happen to see that and they're available, and they might be able to help you through something very quickly by just answering a quick question through email. That's it for extra help.
All right, so if you have questions here is kind of the go-to who you should reach out to for individual, questions or concerns. So if it's a question or concern about a specific subject, please reach out to that individual teacher. They'll be able to provide you the best information. If it's a social emotional concern, maybe there's something going on with your family that you want the team to be aware of, please reach out to the school counselor or our support counselors or our clinical interventionist, and they will relay the information to our entire team. In terms of absences or early dismissals, that is always the KP office. And just a reminder, if your child is leaving school early, please send them in with a note. They will give that note to their period 1 teacher, who will be able to give them a pass and let the office know in that case. And if it's just something general question or concern, your student's advisor is a great go-to, but you can also reach out to Alicia as team leader, or even Justin Gussie. He is our Ruby team administrator. So we are certainly all here to help.
Okay, so I can get us started on our individual curricula as we sort of share out what your students will be learning about in each of our classes. So language arts, we're always about all of the language arts skills, right? Reading, writing, speaking, and listening. And I would add to that kind of thinking critically too through multiple lenses. So what we will do in language arts is to read a lot. We've been in the midst of a lot of really great short stories. Maybe your students are talking about them at home, and some short memoir. We'll read novels, we'll read some poetry, we'll read a lot of nonfiction, and even some drama. We will write a lot with the 3 main modes of writing, where we take those pieces through kind of the writing process, being an argument piece, an informational piece, and a narrative, a personal narrative. But they'll also write a little bit of poetry. They'll be able to engage in a little bit of creative writing throughout the year, and some quick writes off and on. We'll work a lot on speaking and listening, and students in some of my classes are still kind of working through presenting their book talks, or the books that they read for summer reading. So we're working on, being good audience members, and our speaking skills in large and small settings. Grammar and vocabulary are usually taught in context within the unit that we're studying, front-loaded when possible, and when that makes sense, from class to class, or assignment to assignment, or unit to unit. So that's what we'll do. And the goals of language arts are really primarily one of the biggies is to increase their stamina in reading and writing. And I think everyone's reading and writing muscles have atrophied a little bit over this last year. So your students are probably hearing me talk about how, just like if you stop lifting weights or you stop running, it's hard the next time you try it. It's the same thing with reading and writing. So our goals are to continue to try to become the most independent, strategic readers and writers and thinkers that we can. So hopefully they will begin to need me less and less, and as they begin to take on more and more responsibility for their learning. They'll work on improving all of those skills, and really just hopefully getting better at each of the domains within language arts than they were before that unit of study. And so far, so good.
Sorry, I'm still admitting parents, so that's why it just took a minute there. So I'll talk a little bit about the math classes. So as a teacher of math, I've been a teacher of math at KP for, I'll just say over 20 years, I guess is a good way to put that. I'll just keep it at that. So this year in 7th grade, you can look at my screen and you can see the units to study that will cover in both the honors classes and in the Math 7 classes. And in 6th grade, these 2 curriculums kind of overlapped a lot. And in 7th grade, they don't overlap as much. So in honors, 7, it's really a preparation for their Algebra 1 class next year. So everything I'm doing this year with your children is the underlying goal is to prepare them for what they'll do in Algebra 1 next year as an 8th grade student. In the 7th grade units of study, what we're trying to do is we're trying to prepare them for their 8th grade math class, which will include a lot of algebraic concepts. So there's not a ton of overlap in terms of the 2 classes this year. And where there is overlap, they're not done at the same time. So it might be something I'm doing with the honors class in October. I might do with the Math 7 class maybe in February or March. So that's the way the 2 classes kind of are differentiated that way. Up on the top of my screen, you can see that I just put 4 little signs in there. And those are basically the 4 tools that I use primarily when it comes to online resources. So we have our Ready books, which for the standard classes, they're called Ready 7. So they're a 7th grade book. And for the 7 honors, we don't give them the 7th grade book. We actually give them the 8th grade book, but we don't start using that for a little while because we do some 7th grade concepts first. So that's our main resource. That's our main set of materials we use to instruct from. The other 3 signs you see there, IXL I use occasionally for homework. Quizzes is another site I'll sometimes use for classwork or sometimes even for assessments. It does a real nice job with assessments and it's online. So it's the ease of which I can produce the assessment and score it is great. And then finally, the last little note you see there is something called Desmos. Desmos is a website that I'll take students to during class time. And from that website, I can see all of their screens and they can work through problems and I can highlight their screens and look at them without actually having to walk around class and look at papers. So everything's on my screen. So I can see all students' work. So I can see how they're progressing and make comments on them while they're working in class. So those are some of the nuts and bolts. The more important aspects of my hopes are and my goals is that by the end of 7th grade, I hope that your son or daughter realizes that there are real valid reasons for studying math. I also want to build their fluency with their mathematical skills, not just so they're skillful with those particular skill sets, but because they can then take those skills and actually apply them to problems that are more involved. And then finally, the second bullet there is probably to me the most important skill that I'm trying to get across to the children this year. And that's in the world of math as is in the world of life, like to teach them to persevere and to create just a little more work ethic in terms of working through things that aren't so easy. It's very easy for kids to give up on math problems when they don't understand them. So I'm really trying to promote and facilitate this kind of persevering way through the year. And there'll be many challenging problems for all of them. And my hope is that they continue to struggle and work through them. And from that, I think they'll have a much more deep understanding of the math we're learning. And that's something that can carry on to other subjects as well. I think that's all I have.
So science, I taught 6th grade science at KP for 15 or 16 years, and this is my 3rd year teaching 7th grade science. So I like to connect and kind of draw the bridge between what they learned last year and where they're headed. And there are a lot of nice connections. So for example, our first unit, we began discussing what they had learned in terms of math or in 6th grade. And then that led us into looking at atoms. So it was a nice connection to kind of take what they already know and then to build on that. I know they also learn about biomes and adaptations. That flows very nicely into our unit on natural selection. So there is a lot of nice scaffolding that can take place. And I find kids connect and feel successful when they already have prior knowledge going in. So I really try to build on that. So the 5 units we do are atomic structure. We look at cell structure and function, a unit on genetics, my favorite, natural selection, and then we end the year with human body systems. And in science, we really use a 3D approach where we are connecting the science and engineering practices. So things like looking at data, analyzing it, constructing explanations. We weave that into the disciplinary core ideas, which are looking at, specifically the unit of instruction, all right, whatever topic we're learning about. And then we weave that into cross-cutting concepts, where kids will build models, they'll identify patterns, and it really gives it a multidimensional approach and helps kids to, I think outside of the box and see more connections. This year, through a grant from the Foundation of West Hartford Public Schools, I am also using a program called Mosamax Science. I actually received the grant last year and it flows through the end of this year. So I did use this program last year, and it is a online learning platform. All the students have their own login information, and it actually is based out of Connecticut, which I love. And a team of people have put together several areas in terms of looking at scientific phenomenon through engaging videos. There is a animated mystery that students have to solve. There are engineering tasks and labs. So last year I wasn't able to do labs in the classroom. This year I'm hoping to implement more of those. But through this program, there are some labs that maybe we don't have materials for, but that students can witness through Mosamax Science. So students have access to that all the time. So ask your child about that, ask them to pop that open. And that was funded by the Foundation for West Hartford Public Schools. So really my goals for your children are to build in their scientific literacy. I want them to look around, to notice things, to question the world around them, and to understand how things work. I think that's all for me.
Okay, so for social studies in grade 7, it is actually a continuation from grade 6. Grade 6 and 7, we do world regions. In grade 7, we are firmly in the Eastern Hemisphere of the world. So our main 3 regions that we study China in East Asia, Middle East, and India and Southeast Asia. So we just actually started China this week, learning about some geography right now. And social studies and history, I feel a lot of people still think of the old school stereotypical, it's just a bunch of facts and lots of tests and just regurgitating knowledge. But it really has transformed, especially now in the 21st century, where we're really firmly based in skills and inquiry-based learning. So we do a lot of research and a lot of critical reading. We do a lot of project-based learning, a lot of argument writing, and a lot of discussion to get our big ideas of the overarching themes of these places that we're learning about that help to also answer our EQs. And ultimately, by the end of the year, my goal obviously is hopefully your child remembers some of those great, interesting facts that we have learned about, but ultimately is growing in those skills that we use every day. So we do some reading every day. So I do hope that they are a better reader by the end of a year here with me. We do a lot of writing, argument writing. We do a lot of summaries. We do a lot of research notes. So hopefully they are a better writer, a better critical thinker, where they're analyzing information, they're analyzing the perspectives of the sources that they're seeing, they're evaluating information and sources for validity. So all that goes into critical thinking, especially with a lot of information at their fingertips. I think that is a critical skill that myself and my other 7th grade social studies teachers colleagues were really focusing in on each year. And ultimately, my class is all about the world around us. So I really want them to care about the world around them, that there is a greater, bigger world outside of just West Hartford, and that they are part of that big global community to make our world a better place.
All right, so again, hi, I'm Gina Pudlow, and it's my 20th year, I think, teaching at KP. I only teach about half of the Ruby students. I also teach Opal and Sapphire, the other 7th grade teams. I do teach 2 classes. Beginning Spanish is one prep, and then Spanish B is the majority of my students. So if you check out the screen, you'll see the basic units that are covered in each of those classes. As similarly to language arts, the 4 major skills that we work on in Spanish are reading, writing, listening, and speaking. So for reading, we try to get into some authentic texts and practice our comprehension with reading. For writing, we have our first big writing assignment coming up, and that'll be in the form of a comic strip coming up next week, working on our current unit in the form of a comic strip to show or to apply what they've learned so far this year. Listening, we'll have, well, they have to listen to me all the time, and we also have videos and authentic listening activities that they have to respond to as well. Speaking is big. I really try to emphasize speaking only Spanish in class, and they will be working on different speaking activities in small groups or paired up, or it could be just back and forth with me. Sometimes they would maybe have to record themselves as well on different websites, like we have a Flipgrid and a Vocaroo that we often use. I just wanted to talk about the grading for a minute, because world language, our grades don't look like the traditional grades that you may see in PowerSchool, like tests and homework and projects. We actually grade by skill. So you're going to see in PowerSchool productive, interpretive, content knowledge, and commitment to learning. Productive would be anything that the student produces in written or in spoken form. So you'll see that if they have to write like the comic strip that they'll be doing next week, that's all written. So that's going to be under the productive category. Interpretive is anything that's listening or reading. So they're either interpreting the written text through reading, or they're listening and trying to interpret what they hear. So any kind of listening, reading activity we do will be under interpretive. That's an interpretive skill. Content knowledge is basically verb identification and vocab. And then commitment to learning, I give that grade every couple weeks, and it's based on a lot of things, such as, is the warm-up done every day? Is the homework completed? Homework would fall into that category. Are they following class routines and expectations and using as much Spanish as they can in class? So like I said, I only teach about half of the Ruby students. Your child may have a different language teacher, but we all grade the same way. So you'll be seeing the same kind of thing in your child's PowerSchool, even if they have a different teacher. The main focus or goal for me this year is to improve proficiency, and I just spoke about that with my classes today. So I tried to explain how we're trying to move from what's called a novice low or a novice mid up into a novice high or intermediate low. And we're going to be working throughout the year, and I'm going to be showing them how to elaborate and add in details and improve their proficiency by the time we get to June, the end of the year. That's it, Alicia. I think Mrs. Kapala is next.
Hello, everyone. So I am on the Ruby team, and I am the special education teacher. I do a lot of different things. If any of you have seen the Flipgrid that we made for the beginning of the year, I said you'll kind of find me doing a little bit of everything. So some of the things that are offered is a content support class. These are all IEP services. So if your student is referred to special education and they go through the process and an IEP is developed, an individualized education plan, these are some of the services that are included. Content support is in math or language arts, and it takes the place of a world language in your student's schedule. We also have an intensive reading and writing program that is 2 periods per day. So this again would also take the place of a world language. And the purpose of this program is to help move students to grade level independence and close the gap between their peers in their reading abilities. and writing abilities. So the program is intensive in that there's a computer-based part of it, and that includes text training and then word training, so things that they do on their own. Independent reading is also part of this program. So just like in the language arts class, we're hoping to, help students develop a love of reading and find texts that are at their level so that they can enjoy the reading process. The study skills class happens during Learning Lab 1 or 2 times per week. And this provides support in the areas of executive functioning, including planning, organization, and time management. I also am in the math class, one of the math classes, doing a co-taught math class. So if you have any questions, then we're going to hopefully open it up for that. And hopefully we can answer your questions here. If we cannot answer them, then we'll try to find out and get back to you. There was a Google form that was sent out to you asking if you had any questions. So I'm not sure if we got any questions ahead of time on the Google form, but if you have questions now, you can put them into the chat and people will try to answer them for you.
Great, thanks, Ms. Kapala. Before we kind of go off into that question and answers as well, just one other thing. If you would like to meet our 7th grade UA teachers, they are in a separate Google Meet right now. I'm going to pop that link into our chat. So if you would like to head on over there, you can certainly go meet our 7th grade UA teachers. And if you have any questions for them specifically, that's where they're hanging out right now. But for us, we would definitely love to hear questions from our team families. I did not see any questions in our Google form previously, so we're just going to rely on our chat for your question and answer session. And if you feel like unmuting, please do so. We'd love to hear your voice. I know we've had some stuff here.
Alicia, I did see one question from Caleb.
Oh, yeah.
He asked the question, has the curriculum been adjusted to take into account the deficiencies incurred or resulted from student experiences last year and the year before? In terms of the math classes, I can tell you, for example, that we started our first unit a couple weeks ago, and I actually started that 7th grade unit with really a sixth grade kind of mindset. So we worked through some 6th grade concepts the first week or so, and that was last week into this week. And literally just today, we started working on the 7th grade kind of levels of those concepts we were working on. So we are kind of, at least me, I'll speak for myself, I'm starting most units with a little bit of work that may or may not have occurred in 6th grade, or maybe it did, but maybe not to the breadth or to the depth that we wanted the students to kind of investigate those concepts. So in math, we're definitely doing a little bit of a combination of obviously mostly 7th grade, but also with the idea that maybe the 6th grade concepts weren't exactly mastered just because of the nature of last year. So hopefully that answers your question.
I know in world language, we've also adjusted our curriculum to make up for what was missed the prior year. So we're starting at different places than we normally would and trying to fill in the gaps just by changing the curriculum as well.
And for language arts, really from elementary school right up through high school, you'll see that a lot of the same skills exist and really just kind of align vertically. It's just that the level that the students are working within those skills that changes. So kids have been like learning about characters, since elementary school. They'll keep learning about characters straight on through high school. So with language arts, it's not really a change in the curriculum so much as sort of like casting a kind of wide net and kind of seeing where we are in terms of our students' levels in a given class and doing our best to kind of meet them where they are and help them gain some of the skills that they may be didn't get to tighten up so much last year. So it's a little bit unique, I think, in that regard for language arts, but good question. And right, the Chinese teacher is not in this meet. So just if somebody was still wondering about that, different team.
Yeah, just to speak to social studies with that previous question too, similar to language arts, our main skills, argument writing, research, they spiral throughout all the upper grade levels. So I know I just did a baseline writing assessment a couple weeks ago. So I'm still in the process of grading them, but that will really give me a good starting point of where to start writing instruction. And I can really meet students where they're at in their claim writing, their evidence use, and their analysis of their evidence that they're pulling from the sources. But we certainly will do everything that we can to take into account, the past year and a half is so unusual. And we're more than willing to do anything that we can to make sure our students are well supported. I don't know if there was anything.
I just want to address a question I saw. Someone asked when they're going to get results from the testing from last year. So I'm assuming that's referring to the state testing. So all 6th grade kids took Smarter Balanced assessments last year in math and language arts. I'm sorry, because I'm not the testing coordinator for the school, so I'm not 100% certain. Typically, we get those letters from the State Department through our district office, and then we mail them out from the school. We usually do that in September. I know that tomorrow is October. So if you haven't gotten that yet, I'm not certain about when you would be getting those mailings. But if you're curious, I could look up your test results if you reach out to me. And just want to know, I'd be happy to share those.
Thank you, Mr. Gussie. I did see a question about homework as well. What is the general expectation regarding homework? How long should they spend on each subject? The general rule of thumb is like 10 minutes per the grade level. So students should be spending about 70 minutes a night on homework roughly, but it definitely depends on the subject matter as well. Some subjects will be more, ELAs read 20 to 30 minutes a night. I know oftentimes once I get more into my curriculum, it's like finish this piece of classwork that we're on. I can't speak to math or Spanish or science if any of my colleagues want to jump on that.
I'll speak to math. So normally students are given homework Monday through Thursday. I don't give homework on weekends, and usually most of the assignments I expect the kids to spend maybe 15 to 20 minutes. If it's some kind of an online assignment, I'll usually have them achieve a certain percentage of completion or a certain time allotment, because I'm really just looking for them to work on skills and to practice. So I would say a reasonable amount of time for math is 15 to 20 minutes, Monday through Thursday. And then nothing on the weekends.
Yeah, I would say Spanish is similar to math. I don't typically give homework on the weekends. Probably even a little bit less for Spanish with regard to time. I would say probably 10 minutes. I usually have them start it about 3 or 4 minutes before class ends in case they have any questions or they don't understand. So they usually get a few done in class and then maybe have to spend at the most 10 more minutes to try to complete that.
And in science, I don't give homework every night. When I do, it's usually about a 10-minute assignment. I also try to avoid homework on the weekend. But really, as I hear this question in terms of, homework, we definitely want your children to have a life outside of school. And we know that's important for their well-being. So, there are some kids who have Learning Lab several times a week, and those kids often get their homework done in Learning Lab. If your child doesn't have a Learning Lab, then they probably have more homework in the evening. But please feel free to reach out to us if you know your child is sitting and they're working well beyond that hour. Reach out to us, let us know. We will work with you and them to kind of find out what's going on and to assist, because we really don't want kids sitting 2-3 hours, at night. We want them to have a life outside of school. All right.
And for language arts, kids should really be reading every day, all day, every day, preferably. Just kidding. But really, they should be reading every day. And homework and language arts aside from that is typically if they were in the midst of reading something that they didn't get to complete during class, or they were in the midst of writing something that they didn't get to complete during class. Typically, the homework is to complete that. But it's, to kind of hop onto what Allie was saying, that, we like for them to have a life and to have some downtime and to let their brain do other things too. So they won't, you will not be seeing homework from language arts that isn't something that's going to really make them ready for the learning for the next day, for the most part.
As a general guideline, students are, it's developmentally appropriate for students to have 10 minutes of homework per grade level. So in first grade, they might have 10 minutes. By fourth grade, they might have 40 minutes. Seventh grade, for the typical student on a typical night, they may have about 70 minutes of homework. And like teachers have said, some of that might get done during learning lab. They might get started in class. But no student is typical, and no evening or night is typical. So there might be some nights when students have more, or it just takes longer for them to do a particular assignment for a particular content area, and some students might work through that faster. But again, if your student's feeling overwhelmed or underwhelmed, please reach out to us so that we can partner with you and figure out how to appropriately challenge your kid.
So I know there was a question. We do have a number of off-team or children taking classes off-team as well. If you are in the boat where one of your child's teachers is not on this meet, hopefully those teachers have reached out to you via email already, but those separate team presentations are also recorded as well. And as Mr. Gussie pointed out in our chat, we're going to be sharing these meet recordings through our KP connection and on our open house website to view as well. Did I miss any questions in the chat? And I apologize if you're like raising your hand physically. I don't see everyone with the presentation. So if you have a question, you can either pop in the chat or you can unmute yourself. We do have a few more minutes for any thoughts or questions that you might have.
I did see one question up above about the books that are used in math and language arts. I can tell you in the math classes, our primary resource, and I'll just type it in, ready resources, that's what we use for math. And that's both standard level classes and honors level classes. I think they asked about ELA as well.
Right. So it's a very long list of books that we read in language arts. Right now in our short story unit, we read between 8 and 10 short stories alone, just in this unit 1. Every 7th grader will probably read The Giver by Lois Lowry as a part of a unit on, it's a dystopian unit where students are thinking about themselves in relation to their greater community and freedom versus safety. They will read in smaller groups, they will read a historical fiction, either memoir or historical fiction, either memoir set in a specific time in history. And then in the spring, they will read books in verse and a lot of poetry. And like I said, the titles are many, but if there are people who really would love a list so that you can kind of see what the options would be, I'm happy to send that out. If you wanted to shoot me an email, I would be happy to let you know.
Great. I know there's a question about Teams, and Mr. Gussie put out there that we've used Teams to help build smaller communities. That allows us to build better relationships and more intimate relationships with students and really get to know the whole child. And in a team community, at least we can collaborate and think of strategies to best support every student that we have on our caseload as well.
I might be wrong, but I interpreted that question differently. I thought the question was asking why would a student on a Ruby team go to Sapphire or to Opal for a different class, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, so this year, we're trying to keep classes as small as we possibly can. So there's actually a cap of 24 across the district, so that kids can be spaced out in classrooms, be at least 3 feet apart to try to mitigate spread of COVID or other illnesses. So as we've gotten new enrollees to our 7th grade, you know, I think we're all fortunate here to be in West Hartford. Lots of people want to move to West Hartford, and our enrollments continue to grow, particularly in 7th grade. And we've had to cross-team a lot of our new enrollees just to keep them in manageable classes and appropriately sized classes. So it's not ideal, but it's the best for everyone's health. And we're trying to make sure that you know, kids get the attention they need to in those classes of more manageable sizes.
Thanks, Justin. So our time is almost up. I'm just looking to see if there's any more questions that any families might have out there. Ah, Ms. Stevenson, you were reading Miss Sani's mind there. Yes, thank you for that. Great. Well, like I said, or like we mentioned before, I think Ms. Pello actually mentioned this at the beginning. There is going to be an email. It's going to come from me again. I'm sorry. You probably have gotten so many emails from me, and you're going to be tired of seeing them from me too. But they do contain information either that we're trying to get to you or that we're trying to gather from you. So there will be an email sent in about 10 minutes with just the slideshow presentation. So if you want easy access to it as well, you'll have it there at your fingertips. And then also just a quick Google form for you to fill out if you choose to do so with your name and your child's name. And if there's anything that you think that we should know about them, how they are as a learner, a hobby, a special interest, anything that makes them unique and special in your eyes, we love to get just to know our students also on that personal level. So that is there. And then if there are any lingering questions that you have and you're like, oh my God, I wish I answered this, or I'm sorry, I wish I asked this so I can get an answer, there's a space for you to also include any other questions that you might have. And we'll try to answer those to the best of our ability and send them out to you in our newsletter to be sent tomorrow afternoon. Thank you so much for hanging out with us tonight. We wish you a very great evening. And as always, we're always here for you. So please feel free to reach out to us via email or phone call at any time. Thank you. Goodbye.
I'll just add, Alicia, that I'm going to stay on the meet for a few minutes for any families who are coming here from like a 6th grade team, because I do work with some 6th grade students who come up to 7th grade. So I'll be hanging out here for a couple of minutes if there's any parents who happen to come in.
Sounds good, Mr. Fisher. Always going above and beyond.
Yes, I am.
Gina, I think you could probably stop the recording now because you probably don't want to record Eric's private math conversations.
Yeah.
Well, I pushed stop recording, yet the red button still says it's recording. Can I just log off and it'll stop recording?
I think that's fair enough. It's
I
probably
see it. It says, I have it. It says stop recording now. I got it.